All right, I'm going to start by addressing the elephant in the room. I'm aware that I'm dressed like Mrs. Claus today. It happened by accident. We are going to start out the mishap stream by checking audio to avoid a mishap. Okay, interesting. Boomathy, we've got audio. Okay, so today, if you read the title and the thumbnail, we are talking mishaps because there's always quite a few to talk about, no? So, we had a little meeting this morning, we being me and my boss, and we talked through live streaming, and also it kind of was just a touching base about all sorts of things. And one of the persisting issues with live streaming in particular is that our thumbnails look strange. And I'm not talking about the interesting hunch that I have in all of them. We're talking about some of the pixelation, which is strange because I am following the YouTube guidelines for thumbnail size. And listen, I'm scrolling through my YouTube homepage right now. And by mine, I mean Driven Catalysts, which has an interesting aggregation of content. Because we don't really use it as a user, we use it as a creator. But all the thumbnails look great. They don't look the way mine do. And so that is something that ideally will be fixed someday. We've tried it though. And I just am not totally sure why it's going badly. I tried something different today to see if it would help, and it did not. So, that's never great. When you think you know the problem, you think you know the solution to the problem, you fix it, and it doesn't do anything. Does it look better at least? Maybe. Maybe. Not totally, though. So that's certainly one of the mishaps that has gone on in this streaming journey. One that follows me through every stream are the audio mishaps that we have had where I have live streamed and then straight up not had audio. I think the very first stream that happened, and it has continued. So sorry, I just got an email back and I read it and my brain got fuzzy. So what that ended up being most of the time, sometimes it was because I was using a streaming platform so I could screen share, and the audio settings were not completely hooked up right for that. And so when I would open and close the software, settings would change. So sometimes I would use that software, we would have audio, other times not so much. Then the other times when I would live stream and I wasn't using that software, it was because many of you know, Apple did this lovely thing a couple years ago where they took absolutely every port that isn't a USB-C off of their MacBook Pros. And so mine has HDMI and then 3 USB-Cs, a headphone jack, and a card reader for SD cards. So to plug everything in for streaming, I have one of those little dongle extra strips of adapters, that's the word. And so when I go and plug it in before the stream, that changes up my computer settings. And if I don't go in every single time and say, hey, change your default audio settings, at this point, I think my laptop has learned like what to hook up default, but certainly there were times where I didn't double check, and I've just gotten into the habit of double checking, and that would result in the audio not being correct. Continuing on down the line, there were some settings that changed with TikTok early on where I would edit and post TikToks, and I still haven't fully been able to grasp what was causing it, but it's almost like if I have my phone, from what I was able to deduce while doing some digging on what was causing these issues, because it looked fine when I would edit and post a TikTok, and then I could view it on other devices and it would look fine. But then there were some times where I would log into my personal account, view the TikTok I just posted. Is that true? I think it's the other way around. I would view the TikTok I just posted on the Driven Catalyst account, and all of a sudden it was blown out and the exposure was way up and wrong. And then I could go to my personal account, watch the same TikTok as a viewer, and it looked great. And I found out that that was something to do with if you have the brightness settings on your phone such that either like night shift or something is on, or you have it naturally adapting to your settings or your surroundings, it changes color and lighting stuff. And for a bit, I don't know if it was a TikTok update or bug or what, but I feel like I only ran into it a couple of times. Let me fix my Ewok. Still a little askew, but it's kind of hard to tell if it really is or not. Anywho, so that was something I ran into. Logic Pro, a lot of mishaps with Logic Pro back in the days when we were making Eagle 9 Locked, where I would, holy cow, we're so far out from it, I don't remember what it's called to export with Logic. What do they call it? You like bump it? Bump it, boost, wow, I never thought I'd see the day. Wow, what is it called? I'm gonna have to redo some voiceover work for something soon. And so I'll have to be firing back up Logic, but I can't believe it's been so long. Bounce. I was close with Bump It. Oh, do you remember early Y2K, the Bump Its? Great era. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, that was like a crazy little side quest. But yeah, so back in the days when I was helping associate produce Eagle 9 Locked, I would we would be going through these pages and pages of edits, right? And there would be bigger, more obvious edits, and then little changes like, oh, okay, this door shutting needs to be a little bit louder. And we had to make sure all the levels were behaving and that they were interacting with each other correctly. And there were just so many variables, it could make your head spin. And I was wearing these headphones to edit, which these are my Sennheisers. And then it's different when you listen with AirPods. And then depending on what listening settings you have set to your AirPods, things get condensed differently. And so I would make changes and then we would bounce them and they would sound a little bit differently. And sometimes it was like, I think what it must have been now in retrospect, but it felt like actually I was getting gaslit by Logic Pro. But I think in retrospect, it must have been that I was spinning up on Final Cut and Logic Pro at the same time, and that there are keystrokes that don't, I mean, nearly none of them work cross-platform. And so I must have been doing like Control Z or whatever, like undoing things and thinking I was making a change and then undoing it by accident, when in actuality I thought I had just done it and done it correctly and then bounced it, because there were so many times that things were wrong. But I think that was like actually a really helpful journey, because I just naturally, when I work with other people that that are dealing with complex softwares and anything goes wrong, I just immediately am like, I totally get that things just happen, and sometimes you don't know why they're happening. And I certainly don't expect everyone to be a total savant at the software that they're using. So, and I don't know that I wouldn't have had that prior to this experience, but even more so than ever, I understand that software sometimes gaslights you. And I'm sure it was user error on my part a lot, but um, sometimes it's like, if user error is that prevalent, then your software is not totally intuitive and usable enough. And so it stops being user error and it starts being a little bit developer error. No, I'm kidding. But yeah. So that would go on. That created a lot of mishaps. Trying to think through other things that have been learning moments and mishaps along the way. I never really said it clearly and plainly, but I'm pretty sure it's implied that today I'm just kind of talking through mishaps. And the catalyst for thinking through that is because we had this meeting about the thumbnails still being, we didn't have the meeting about the thumbnails being pixelated, but we brought it up again and we've talked about it before, and we have tried multiple different fixes and still haven't totally figured out what's going wrong. So, I think it's great to kind of sit and reflect on other mishaps like that that have gone on and what can be learned from them. Um, yeah. Oh, we're working on a video series for something else, and it was my first time setting up multicam without TV studio cameras, like kind of just doing it doing it, I always say like scrappy. Scrappy is a better way. Doing it kind of scrappy with I say scrappy because I brought in my tripod and camera from home to try it. And the setup was not less than ideal. There was just learning to be done. Because I'm used to big TV studio cameras on wheels, and you wheel them around, but more often than not in a studio space, they are positioned in places that it's pretty intuitive where your two shot is and where blah, blah, blah. And it's just a lot easier to set up a good looking, I don't know, interview space. And so we were working through the logistics of that. And I set up my cameras, my A and B camera, and the shots were not different enough. And the idea was to beat the jump cut, like to set it up such that I could avoid jump cutting. And it just did the opposite. It made every single cut look like a jump cut because my A cam and B cam were not different enough. That was it's something I wish I had spotted as we were doing it, and I'm a little embarrassed I didn't, and I should have been able to. But again, it's just like that is part of the learning curve, I think, of getting your toes wet again for something with something that you haven't done in a bit. So that was sort of a half mishap. But yeah, there's been a huge learning curve for a lot of this stuff. But it has been good. Oh, less so, but a little bit. It falls under the learning curve list. TikTok just released the new feature too, where you can edit and re-upload a video. Yeah, don't do that. That's going to tank your algorithm. So that just like getting the lay of the land with social platforms and figuring out what is going to just tank your content in the eyes of the algorithm is important too. And it's not necessarily a mishap, but no one wants to spend a lot of time and effort on content and then for it to flop. Granted, sometimes it has to be done, and that is what we do. It's worth embracing at times, but yeah, it certainly is a learning curve. Well, this has been kind of a meandering live stream. I really hopped on, thought I had a theme, wanted to follow it. Talk through some learning moments, some mishaps that I have encountered. And I think that's probably going to be a wrap. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. I wish you a very, very mishapless Thursday. I'm going to be so real. I just thought the cutesy live stream name was fun. And I thought, you know what? I have some stuff I could talk about. So I hopped on with this theme, and I feel like it has been slow and aimless and non-engaging. And I apologize for that. But once again, I feel like the medium is the message. I definitely have construed that quote to fit my agenda quite a bit, probably. But in this context, maybe this whole live stream has been a mishap. And maybe that's the point. Have a great Thursday. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.